What happened when you recorded your in-law without them knowing? The recording app was already running when Linda knocked on my door at 7:23 a.m. that Tuesday morning in November. I'd gotten into the habit of hitting record the moment I saw her silver Honda pull into our driveway, because I knew what was coming. "Oh, Sarah, you look absolutely exhausted," she said the second I opened the door, her voice dripping with fake concern as she pushed past me into the living room. "Are you sure you're getting enough sleep?" You know, when Michael was little, I never looked this worn down. I forced a smile and slipped my phone into my back pocket, making sure the microphone wasn't blocked. "Good morning, Linda. Michael's already left for work." "I know exactly where my son is," she snapped, her sweet grandmother act dropping instantly now that we were alone. "I'm here to talk to you." My 2-year-old daughter Emma was in her high chair, cheerfully smashing banana pieces onto her tray. Linda walked over and smoothed Emma's hair with practiced tenderness. "Hello, my precious angel. Grandma's here." The contrast never failed to amaze me. With Emma, Linda was genuinely loving. With me, she was a completely different person. "Sarah, sit down." Linda's voice had taken on that commanding tone I'd learned to dread over the past 2 years. "We need to discuss your behavior at Sunday dinner." I remained standing near the kitchen counter, my heart already racing. "What behavior?" "Don't play dumb with me. You embarrassed our family in front of the Hendersons." She settled into our armchair like she owned it. "Talking about your little teaching job like it's some grand career, going on and on about your students. Nobody cares about your work stories, Sarah." The recording app showed 2 minutes and 17 seconds. I needed to keep her talking. "I was just making conversation when they asked about my job," I said quietly. Linda let out a harsh laugh. "Conversation? You were showing off. Making it seem like you're something special because you work with children all day. Newsflash, sweetie, any idiot can manage a classroom of 3rd graders." Emma threw a piece of banana on the floor and giggled. Linda immediately shifted back to her grandmother voice. "Oh, what a silly girl. Grandma will clean that up for you, sweetheart." Then she looked directly at me. "Unlike some people, I actually know how to take care of children properly. I raised Michael to be successful, responsible, and well-mannered. He deserves so much better than this chaos you call a home." I glanced around our living room, toys neatly organized in baskets, floors clean, dishes done. "What chaos? Don't get smart with me." Linda's eyes narrowed. "You know exactly what I mean. Michael works 60-hour weeks while you play around with finger paints and story time. He comes home to a wife who's too tired for him, too overwhelmed to cook decent meals, too scattered to keep this house running properly." 4 minutes and 52 seconds now. My phone felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. "Michael seems happy with our arrangement," I managed. "Michael is too kind to tell you the truth." "But I'm not." Linda stood up and moved closer to me, lowering her voice. "You're not good enough for him, Sarah. You never were. And deep down, you know it." Emma started fussing in her high chair, sensing the tension in the room even if she couldn't understand the words. Linda was just getting started. "You want to know what Michael really thinks?" Linda's voice dropped to an almost whisper as she stepped even closer. "He told me just last week that he's exhausted. Exhausted from coming home to a whining wife who can't handle basic responsibilities." My hands trembled as I lifted Emma from her high chair, needing something to do with the nervous energy coursing through me. The recording timer showed 6 minutes and 14 seconds. "He never said that," I whispered, but doubt crept into my voice. "Michael had been working late more often recently, and when he came home, he did seem distant." Linda smiled, a cold, satisfied expression that made my stomach turn. "Oh, but he did. Saturday afternoon when he helped me move that bookshelf. He said married life isn't what he expected. That he thought he'd have a partner, not another child to take care of." Emma wrapped her little arms around my neck, and I inhaled her sweet baby scent for comfort. "You're lying." "Am I? Then why does he spend every Sunday at our house instead of here? Why does he call me when he needs advice instead of talking to you? Why does he light up when I mention his old girlfriend Rebecca?" My blood went cold. "What about Rebecca?" Linda's eyes gleamed with triumph. "She's divorced now, you know. Moved back to town last month. Michael and I ran into her at the grocery store on Sunday, after you decided to stay home with your headache." She made air quotes around the word headache, mocking me. "Michael didn't mention seeing Rebecca," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course he didn't. He's trying to be loyal to you, poor thing. But you should have seen his face light up when she hugged him. Rebecca looks amazing, by the way. She's a real estate agent now, making 6 figures. No kids weighing her down, no exhaustion written all over her face. She remembered how funny Michael is, how charming. Do you even appreciate those qualities in him anymore?" Emma was getting restless, squirming in my arms and reaching for her sippy cup. I grabbed it from the counter with shaking hands. The recording timer now showed 8 minutes and 31 seconds. "Michael loves his family," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "Michael loves Emma, absolutely. That child is perfect." Linda's voice softened as she looked at my daughter. "But love for his daughter doesn't mean he has to stay trapped in a marriage that's sucking the life out of him." She walked over to our wedding photo on the mantel, picking it up and studying it with theatrical interest. "You were actually pretty that day, I'll give you credit. But look at you now, baggy clothes, roots growing out, bags under your eyes. When's the last time you made an effort for your husband?" I set Emma down on her play mat and watched her immediately crawl toward her favorite stuffed elephant. "I make plenty of effort." "Really?" "Because Michael mentioned that you two haven't been intimate in over a month. He's a young, attractive man, Sarah. He has needs." Heat flooded my face. There was no way Michael would discuss our private life with his mother. He wouldn't tell you that. Wouldn't he? We're very close, my son and I. Always have been. He tells me everything, including how disappointed he is that the woman he married seems to have given up on their marriage. 9 minutes and 47 seconds. I forced myself to keep listening, even though every word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Linda set the wedding photo back down, but not quite in its original position. Everything she did was calculated. "Rebecca asked about you, actually. Said she hoped you were doing well. Such a classy woman. The mention of Rebecca asking about me felt like a slap. I knew Linda was trying to get under my skin, but the casual cruelty of it still stung. I'm sure she was just being polite, I said, crouching down to hand Emma her elephant. Oh, I don't think it was just politeness. She seemed genuinely concerned about Michael's well-being. Asked if he was happy, if marriage was treating him well. Linda paused dramatically. I didn't know what to tell her. 10 minutes and 33 seconds. I needed to stay calm, keep her talking. This was exactly the kind of manipulation Michael never witnessed, the subtle poison she'd been dripping into my life for 2 years. Michael can speak for himself about his happiness, I said, standing back up. Linda laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Can he? Because from where I sit, it looks like he's been protecting your feelings while slowly drowning in disappointment. Do you know what he said when Rebecca mentioned how she always loved his sense of humor? He said he'd forgotten he was funny. The words hit me like a physical blow. Michael had been more serious lately, less likely to joke around or laugh at my attempts at humor. I'd attributed it to work stress. You're trying to manipulate me, I said, though my voice wavered. I'm trying to open your eyes to reality before it's too late. Linda moved to our bookshelf, running her finger along the spines like she was conducting an inspection. Michael deserves better than this half-life you're offering him. Emma deserves better too. Don't bring Emma into this. Emma is already in this. Linda's mask slipped completely, her voice rising. That beautiful little girl is watching her father become a shell of himself because her mother can't step up and be the wife he needs. Do you think that's healthy for her? Emma looked up from her toys at the sharp tone, her little face concerned. I immediately sat down on the floor next to her, trying to create a calm presence. Lower your voice, I said firmly. Don't tell me how to speak in my son's house. This is my house too, Linda. She whirled around, her eyes flashing with genuine anger. Is it? Because last I checked, Michael's the one paying the mortgage while you play around at that little job of yours. What is it you make, $28,000 a year? 30? That's barely enough to cover Emma's daycare costs. 12 minutes and 6 seconds. The recording was capturing every poisonous word. My salary isn't the point. Your salary is exactly the point. Rebecca makes more in 3 months than you do all year. She could actually contribute to a partnership instead of being dead weight. Emma crawled into my lap, sensing my distress. I wrapped my arms around her, using her warmth to ground myself. Michael knew what I did for work when he married me, I said quietly. Michael thought you had ambition. He thought teaching was a stepping stone to something bigger, administration, maybe, or getting your master's degree. He never imagined you'd be content staying exactly where you are, year after year, while he carries the entire financial burden. Linda sat back down in the armchair, smoothing her skirt with practiced precision. Rebecca has her real estate license, her own condo downtown, a retirement account. She's accomplished something with her life. I help children learn and grow every day. That matters. To who? To you? Because it certainly doesn't matter to anyone else. Your little third graders will forget you by Christmas break. The cruelty was breathtaking, but I kept the phone recording. 13 minutes and 41 seconds of Linda's true nature, captured forever. Emma started crying, not her usual fussy whimper, but real tears streaming down her chubby cheeks. The tension in the room had finally overwhelmed her toddler instincts. I bounced her gently, making soft shushing sounds, but Linda's voice cut through my attempts at comfort. Oh, look what you've done now, Linda said, but her tone held no real concern for Emma's distress. You can't even keep a 2-year-old calm during a simple conversation. How do you manage 25 students? I stood up with Emma, walking toward the kitchen to get her some water, but Linda's next words stopped me cold. Michael asked me if I thought Emma would be better off spending more time at our house. The recording timer showed 14 minutes and 18 seconds. My heart hammered against my ribs. What did you say? I told him the truth, that Emma is always perfectly behaved when she's with us. No tantrums, no tears, no drama. Children respond to consistency, Sarah. They need structure and calm authority. Emma's crying intensified, and I realized my own tension was making it worse. I forced my shoulders to relax, swaying gently as I'd done hundreds of times before. Gradually, her sobs quieted to hiccups. See? Linda said, as if Emma's momentary calm proved her point. You just needed to actually try. It shouldn't take that much effort to soothe your own child. She was upset because you were yelling. I wasn't yelling. I was speaking honestly, which is something this family desperately needs more of. Linda stood up again, moving to the window that overlooked our backyard. Michael and I had a long talk on Sunday about Emma's future. About what kind of environment she needs to thrive. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of talk? The kind where a father worries about his daughter's development. Emma barely speaks, Sarah. She should have at least 50 words by now. She has plenty of words, I protested. She says mama, dada, more, up, book. Rebecca's nephew is the same age, and he speaks in full sentences. Complete thoughts. Emma points and grunts like a little animal. The comparison to Rebecca's family felt deliberate and cruel. Emma was developing perfectly normally. Our pediatrician had confirmed it at her last appointment just 3 weeks ago. Dr. Martinez said Emma's language development is right on track, I said. Linda turned from the window with a dismissive wave. Dr. Martinez? That woman barely speaks English herself. Michael and I discussed finding Emma a proper pediatrician, someone who actually understands child development. 15 minutes and 52 seconds. The recording was capturing Linda's attempts to undermine every aspect of my parenting, my career, even my choice of doctors. We're not changing Emma's doctor. We? There's no we in this decision, Sarah. Michael is her father, and if he determines that Emma needs better medical care, that's his choice to make. Fathers have rights. The way she emphasized rights sent ice through my veins. What's that supposed to mean? Linda's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. It means that if this marriage falls apart, and let's be honest, we both know where it's heading, Michael will have significant input into Emma's living arrangements. Especially if there are concerns about her current environment. Emma had settled completely now, playing with the buttons on my sweater, oblivious to the threat being woven around her future. I sat back down on the couch, keeping my voice as steady as possible. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you about reality. Michael is a wonderful father with a stable income and a supportive family network. He provides Emma with everything she needs. So do I. Do you? Because from where I stand, you provide chaos, instability, and mediocrity. Emma deserves better than a mother who's given up on life. 16 minutes and 47 seconds. Linda was building towards something, and I could feel the trap closing around me. You know what I think Emma really needs? Linda continued, settling back into the armchair like she was preparing for a long conversation. She needs a stable grandmother figure who can teach her proper behavior. Someone who has time to really focus on her development. The way she said grandmother figure made it clear she wasn't talking about occasional babysitting. Emma has me, I said, adjusting my daughter on my lap. I'm her mother. Biologically, yes. But motherhood is about so much more than biology, isn't it? It's about providing security, structure, proper guidance. Linda leaned forward conspiratorially. Michael and I have been discussing the possibility of Emma staying with us a few nights a week. Give you a break to focus on whatever it is you do with your free time. 17 minutes and 23 seconds. My phone was getting warm in my back pocket, but I couldn't risk stopping the recording now. We don't need help with Emma's care. Don't you? Because Michael mentioned how exhausted you get. How you sometimes put her in front of the TV for hours just so you can take a nap. That's not quality parenting, Sarah. I had let Emma watch Bluey yesterday afternoon while I dozed on the couch, fighting off the migraine that had been building all morning. It was barely an hour, and she'd been safely beside me the entire time, but somehow Linda knew about it. Michael told you that? Michael tells me everything. We talk every day, sometimes twice a day. He calls me on his lunch breaks, you know. Says it's the only time he gets to have a real conversation with someone who understands him. Emma started squirming, wanting down to play with her blocks. I set her on the floor but kept her within arm's reach. Yesterday he called me at 2:47 p.m., Linda continued with precision that felt rehearsed. He was worried because he tried calling the house 3 times and you didn't answer. Found out later you were napping while Emma watched cartoons. What if there had been an emergency? My phone had been upstairs charging, and yes, I'd fallen asleep on the couch. But I was right there with Emma, and she'd been completely safe. The way Linda twisted it made me sound negligent. One afternoon nap doesn't make me a bad mother. One afternoon? Sarah, please. Michael's mentioned several incidents. Last week when you forgot to pack Emma's lunch for daycare. 2 weeks ago when you showed up to pick her up 30 minutes late because you lost track of time grading papers. Each example hit like a slap because they were true. I had forgotten Emma's lunch once in 6 months, and Miss Kelly had given her extra crackers from the classroom snack supply. And yes, I'd been late for pickup that Tuesday, but it was only 25 minutes, not 30, and Emma had been happily playing with blocks when I arrived. Every parent makes mistakes, I said weakly. Good parents make occasional mistakes. You're establishing a pattern of putting your own needs first. Linda's voice took on that false sweetness again. Now, I'm not saying you don't love Emma. Of course you do. But love isn't enough if you can't provide what she needs. 18 minutes and 44 seconds. Emma had crawled over to her toy kitchen and was opening and closing the plastic oven door, making happy babbling sounds. Normal, healthy toddler behavior that Linda somehow managed to make seem insufficient. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. I'm suggesting that people who truly love a child sometimes have to admit when they're not the best option for that child's care. Michael makes excellent money, enough to afford a really good nanny if needed. Or Emma could spend more structured time with us. We have experience raising successful children. The thread was becoming clearer now, wrapped in concern but unmistakably sharp underneath. Emma stays with her parents. Linda's mask slipped just slightly. Her parent, singular, may have different ideas about that. Especially if certain deficiencies in her current care become more apparent. The recording timer hit 19 minutes and 12 seconds when Linda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her entire demeanor shifted, a genuine smile spreading across her face. Oh, speak of the devil, she said, answering immediately. Hi, sweetheart. Yes, I'm at the house with Sarah and Emma right now. My blood turned to ice. Michael was calling while his mother was in the middle of threatening me, and I could hear his voice faintly through the speaker, warm, affectionate, completely unaware of what had been happening for the past 20 minutes. Everything's fine here, Linda continued, her voice now dripping with the grandmother act. Emma's being such a good girl, playing so nicely. Sarah looks tired though. I was just telling her she should get more rest. She paused, listening, and I caught fragments of Michael's response. Busy day, conference call at 3, dinner tonight. Oh, don't worry about dinner, Linda said quickly. Why don't you just come straight to our house after work? I'm making that pot roast you love, and Dad picked up that wine you wanted to try. Sarah probably needs the evening to catch up on her grading anyway. Emma had crawled over to where I sat frozen on the couch, pulling herself up on my legs and babbling mama, mama, up. But all I could focus on was Linda's side of the conversation and how effortlessly she was manipulating the situation. Perfect. 6:30 works beautifully. Should I pick up Emma around 5? Give Sarah some peace and quiet? Linda's eyes locked with mine as she said this, her expression triumphant. I know how overwhelming she finds it when Emma gets fussy in the evenings. I had never once complained about Emma being fussy in the evenings. If anything, bedtime was our favorite part of the day, stories, songs, and cuddles before she drifted off to sleep. But somehow Linda was painting me as someone who couldn't handle basic parenting responsibilities. Wonderful, sweetheart. Tell Rebecca I said hello if you see her at the meeting today. Such a lovely woman. Linda's voice carried clearly, designed for me to hear every word. Okay, love you too. See you tonight. She hung up and immediately turned to Emma, who was now standing beside my legs, bouncing slightly on her toes. Did you hear that, precious girl? You get to come have dinner with Grandma and Grandpa tonight. Won't that be fun? Emma clapped her hands. She did love visits with her grandparents, which Linda knew perfectly well. But the timing felt calculated, another way to demonstrate her influence over both Michael and Emma. I didn't agree to that, I said quietly, lifting Emma into my lap. You didn't need to. Michael just did. Linda began gathering her purse and car keys. He'll drop her off sometime tomorrow morning before he goes to work. That gives you almost 18 hours to yourself. Most mothers would be grateful. The recording hit 20 minutes and 33 seconds. Linda was wrapping up her visit, but the damage was done. She'd spent 20 minutes systematically tearing apart my confidence, my marriage, and my relationship with my daughter, then capped it off by arranging to take Emma for the evening without consulting me at all. Oh, and Sarah? Linda paused at the door, her hand on the knob. You might want to think about what we discussed today. About what's really best for everyone involved. Michael's happiness matters. Emma's future matters. Sometimes loving someone means making difficult decisions. She was gone before I could respond, leaving behind the faint scent of her expensive perfume and 21 minutes of recorded evidence of exactly who Linda really was when nobody else was watching. Emma looked up at me with her bright brown eyes, Michael's eyes, and said clearly, "Mama sad?" Out of the mouths of babes. Even my 2-year-old could see what Linda's visit had cost me. I stopped the recording and sat on the floor with Emma for a long time after Linda left, listening to my daughter's cheerful babbling while my mind raced. 21 minutes and 17 seconds of pure manipulation, threats, and cruelty, all captured in crystal clear audio. But as I replayed Linda's words in my head, doubt began creeping in like poison. What if Michael really had said those things about me? What if he truly was discussing Emma's living arrangements behind my back? The specific details Linda had mentioned, the missed phone calls yesterday, the forgotten lunch, being late for pickup, those were all real incidents that only Michael could have told her about. Emma crawled over to her blocks, contentedly stacking them into wobbly towers while I transferred the recording to my laptop and created 3 backup copies. As the file uploaded to cloud storage, I found myself questioning everything. Was I really as overwhelmed as Linda claimed? Had I been neglecting Michael's needs without realizing it? My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Mom said she's taking Emma tonight. Thought you could use a break. Love you. The casual way he'd arranged our daughter's evening without consulting me stung worse than I expected. I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. Would have been nice to discuss it first. His reply came immediately. Sorry, babe. Crazy day. Thought you'd be happy for some alone time. Rain check on talking things through? Rain check. Like our marriage was a canceled baseball game. I spent the afternoon in a strange fog, going through the motions of caring for Emma while obsessing over every interaction I'd had with Michael in recent weeks. Had he really seemed that distant? That unhappy? When Linda picked up Emma at exactly 5 p.m., my daughter went eagerly, waving goodbye without looking back. The house felt enormous and suffocating all at once. I called my sister Jessica at 6:30, desperate to talk to someone who knew me before I became Michael's wife and Emma's mother. You sound terrible, Jess said immediately. What did Linda do now? I gave her the abbreviated version, enough to convey Linda's escalating threats without revealing the recording. Jess listened without interrupting, which I loved about her. Sarah, you know she's full of shit, right? Michael adores you. I've seen you two together. But what if he really is talking to her about our problems? What if he did say those things about me being exhausted and overwhelming? Even if he did, which I doubt, that's normal marriage stuff. Every couple goes through rough patches. It doesn't mean he wants to leave you for his ex-girlfriend. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, staring at the recording file. 21 minutes that could either save my marriage or destroy it completely. At 8:47 p.m., Michael's key turned in the lock. Hey, he called out, his voice warm and familiar. How was your evening? Get some rest? I watched him hang up his coat, loosening his tie with the same gesture I'd seen thousands of times. He looked tired but not unhappy. Certainly not like a man plotting to steal my daughter. How was dinner? I asked. Good. Mom made that pot roast with the potatoes you like. He paused, studying my face. She said you seemed stressed today. Everything okay? There it was, the perfect opening. I could tell him everything right now, play the recording, force him to hear his mother's true voice. But something held me back. Maybe it was cowardice, or maybe it was the sudden realization that once I played that recording, there would be no going back. Just tired, I said instead. Long week. Michael nodded, already reaching for his phone to check work emails. Christmas dinner was still 6 weeks away. The next morning, Michael brought Emma home at 7:15 a.m., rushing through the door already dressed for work and checking his phone. She was perfect, as always, he said, kissing Emma's forehead before setting her down. Ate all her breakfast, slept through the night. Mom said she's thinking about potty training soon. Emma kept trying to sit on their little training seat. I felt a spike of irritation. She's not ready for potty training yet. She just turned 2 last month. Michael paused in gathering his briefcase and laptop bag. Mom raised 3 kids, Sarah. She knows what to look for. I'm her mother. I think I'd know if she was ready. Of course, but Mom was just, he stopped, seeming to recognize the edge in my voice. We can talk about it later. I'm already running late. He kissed my cheek, a quick distracted peck, and was gone before I could respond. Emma toddled over to her toy kitchen, chattering happily about Gamma's house and big girl potty. At school that day, I found myself distracted during lessons, my mind cycling through Linda's threats and Michael's casual dismissal of my concerns. During my lunch break, I sat in my empty classroom and replayed portions of yesterday's recording through my headphones. Linda's voice, cold and calculating. Michael asked me if I thought Emma would be better off spending more time at our house. Had she made that up entirely? Or was there some kernel of truth buried in the manipulation? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi Sarah. This is Rebecca Chen. We met briefly at Michael's college reunion last year. I'm back in town and heard through Linda that you guys live nearby. Would love to catch up over coffee sometime if you're interested. My blood turned to ice. Rebecca was reaching out directly, just days after Linda mentioned running into her. The timing felt too convenient to be coincidental. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. Hi Rebecca. Good to hear from you. Things are pretty hectic with work and the toddler, but maybe after the holidays? Her response came within minutes, of course. I remember how demanding teaching can be. Linda mentioned you're at Riverside Elementary. My cousin's daughter goes there. She loves 3rd grade. Maybe we could do a quick coffee this weekend? I'd love to hear about Emma and see pictures. Michael always talks about what a great dad he is. The casual mention of ongoing conversations with Michael made my chest tight. I deleted the message thread without responding. That evening, Michael came home at his usual 6:30 with takeout Chinese food, my favorite from Golden Dragon, complete with extra fortune cookies he knew I loved. The thoughtfulness of it made Linda's poison feel even more confusing. You seem off lately, he said over lo mein and orange chicken. Is everything okay? Work stress? Emma was in her high chair, carefully picking pieces of rice one by one and eating them with intense concentration. Normal, healthy 2-year-old behavior that Linda had somehow twisted into developmental concerns. Your mom thinks Emma should start potty training, I said, testing the waters. Michael nodded. She mentioned that. Said Emma was interested in the bathroom stuff yesterday. Could be good timing, get her out of diapers before the new year. She also thinks we should change Emma's pediatrician. This time Michael looked up from his food. Change Dr. Martinez? Why? She doesn't think Dr. Martinez understands child development properly. Something about Emma's language skills being behind. Michael frowned, glancing at Emma, who was now singing a wordless song to her orange chicken. Emma talks plenty. She said I love Daddy yesterday at Mom's house. Clear as day. Relief flooded through me. She's never said that before. First time. Mom nearly cried. Michael smiled at the memory, then refocused on me. Why would she think we need a new doctor? Dr. Martinez has been great. I chose my words carefully. She mentioned that Rebecca's nephew is more advanced verbally. Something flickered across Michael's expression, surprise, maybe embarrassment. She told you about seeing Rebecca? My heart hammered against my ribs. She mentioned running into her at the store. Right. Michael pushed rice around his plate. That was unexpected. I hadn't seen her in probably 3 years. The careful way he said it told me everything I needed to know. Linda hadn't been lying about his reaction to seeing Rebecca again. How did she look? I asked, keeping my voice light. Good. Same as always, I guess. She's doing well, bought a house downtown, business is taking off. He met my eyes. She asked about you and Emma. Said to tell you hello. She actually texted me today. Michael's chopstick stopped halfway to his mouth. Rebecca texted you? Wanted to get coffee. Catch up. I watched his face carefully. I told her maybe after the holidays. That's nice of her to reach out. His voice was neutral, but I caught something underneath, disappointment, maybe? She was always thoughtful like that. Emma chose that moment to throw her sippy cup on the floor, breaking the tension. Michael immediately got up to retrieve it, and by the time he sat back down, we'd moved on to discussing weekend plans and grocery lists. But I noticed he checked his phone 3 times during dinner, and when it buzzed with what looked like a work email, he read it more carefully than usual. That night, after Emma was asleep, I found Michael on the couch scrolling through his phone. Rebecca's real estate website, he said without me asking, showing me the screen. Just curious about the house she mentioned. Look at this place she sold last month, $750,000 for a 4-bedroom colonial. The house was beautiful, everything our modest 3-bedroom wasn't. Granite countertops, hardwood floors, a kitchen island bigger than our entire dining area. Impressive, I managed. She always was driven. Remember how she had that 5-year plan in college? Owned her own agency by 30, house before 35, 6-figure income before 40. Michael scrolled through more listings. Looks like she's right on track. I watched my husband admire his ex-girlfriend's success and felt Linda's words echoing in my head. Rebecca makes more in 3 months than you do all year. At 10:30 p.m., I excused myself to grade papers, but instead I sat at the kitchen table staring at the recording file on my laptop screen. 21 minutes and 17 seconds that could change everything. The next few days passed in a blur of mounting paranoia and careful observation. Every interaction with Michael felt loaded with hidden meaning, every casual comment about his day potentially containing references to Rebecca or conversations with his mother that I wasn't supposed to know about. On Thursday evening, I was loading the dishwasher when Michael's phone rang. Linda's contact photo filled the screen, a picture of her holding newborn Emma, looking every inch the devoted grandmother. Hey Mom, Michael answered, settling into the living room chair where Linda had delivered her threats just 3 days earlier. What's up? I strained to listen while keeping my hands busy with dishes, catching fragments of the conversation. Really think so? She seemed fine to me. Michael's voice carried a note of concern. Well, if you're worried about it. Emma was playing with her blocks nearby, occasionally bringing me plastic fruit from her toy kitchen with proud announcements of Apple and Nana. I don't know, Mom. That seems like a big step. Michael lowered his voice, but I caught the next part clearly. Sarah's been doing this for 6 years. She knows what she's doing. My hand stilled on the plate I'd been washing. They were talking about my teaching. Tuesday morning? I'll have to check my schedule. Michael pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like his calendar. Yeah, I can probably make that work. But shouldn't Sarah be there too? A meeting. On Tuesday morning. That I apparently wasn't invited to. Okay, if you really think it's necessary. Just, let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. Michael's voice took on the weary tone he used when his mother was being particularly persistent. Right. Yeah. Love you too. He hung up and immediately came into the kitchen, his expression thoughtful and slightly troubled. Everything okay? I asked, proud of how casual I sounded. Mom wants to set up a meeting with Emma's daycare director. She's concerned about something she noticed during Emma's visit yesterday. Michael leaned against the counter, studying my face. Did Emma seem upset about anything when I dropped her off this morning? My mind raced. No, she was fine. Happy as always. What kind of concerns? Mom thinks Emma might be having some anxiety issues. Says she was clingy yesterday evening, didn't want to go to bed, kept asking for you. Michael ran his hand through his hair. She also mentioned that Emma's vocabulary seems limited compared to other kids her age. The recording of Linda's visit played in my head, her calculated comments about Emma's development, her comparisons to Rebecca's nephew, her threats about proper medical care. Now she was escalating to involving Emma's daycare. Emma's vocabulary is perfectly normal, I said, trying to keep the defensiveness out of my voice. Miss Kelly would have mentioned any concerns at the parent conference last month. That's what I told Mom, but she thinks maybe Miss Kelly isn't qualified to assess developmental delays properly. She found some articles about early intervention programs and thinks we should have Emma evaluated by a specialist. I dried my hands on the dish towel, using the motion to buy myself time to think. Michael, Emma is 2 years and 3 months old. She says over 40 words, follows complex instructions, plays pretend games. She's developing beautifully. I know. But Mom raised 3 kids, and she's saying Emma reminds her of how my cousin Jake was at this age. Remember Jake? He needed speech therapy for 2 years. Jake, who was now a perfectly normal teenager with no communication issues whatsoever. But Michael's family loved to create problems that needed Linda's particular brand of intervention to solve. When is this meeting supposed to happen? I asked. Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Mom already called and spoke to Mrs. Henderson. Apparently there have been some incidents. My blood went cold. What incidents? Michael pulled out his phone and scrolled through what looked like notes. Emma bit another child last week during circle time. She's been having trouble with transitions, crying when activities change, refusing to clean up toys. And she had a meltdown during art time on Monday that lasted 20 minutes. None of this was true. Emma loved her daycare, played well with other children, and had never bitten anyone. I picked her up every day and got reports from Miss Kelly about Emma's activities. There had been no incidents, no behavioral problems, no concerning developments. Michael, I think your mother is. Sarah. His voice carried a warning tone I'd rarely heard before. I know you and Mom have your differences, but she's genuinely worried about Emma's well-being. If there are problems at daycare that we don't know about, shouldn't we address them? Emma toddled over with her stuffed elephant, babbling something that sounded like elephant hungry, mama. Feed elephant? She was role-playing, using language creatively, demonstrating exactly the kind of development that proved Linda wrong. There are no problems, I said firmly. Call Miss Kelly yourself. Ask her directly about Emma's behavior. Mom already did. That's how she found out about the incidents. The lie was so brazen, so easily disproven, that I felt dizzy with rage. Linda had either fabricated the entire story or somehow convinced the daycare director to participate in her manipulation campaign. I'm calling Mrs. Henderson myself, I said, reaching for my phone. Michael caught my wrist gently but firmly. It's 8:30 at night, Sarah. We can sort this out at the meeting on Tuesday. Mom's just looking out for Emma. Your mother is not looking out for Emma. I stopped myself before saying something that would force a confrontation I wasn't ready for. She's what? Michael's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. I looked at my husband, at the man I'd loved for 5 years, and realized that Linda had been right about one thing: he would always choose his mother's word over mine. Even when her lies were obvious, even when the evidence contradicted her claims, he would find a way to believe her version of reality. Nothing, I whispered. You're right. We'll sort it out Tuesday. That night, after Michael fell asleep, I uploaded the recording to a secure cloud server and emailed copies to my personal account from 3 different addresses. Whatever happened at Tuesday's meeting, I would be ready. But as I lay awake listening to my husband's steady breathing, one thought kept circling through my mind: if Linda was willing to lie about Emma's behavior at daycare, what else had she lied about? And more terrifyingly, what else was she planning? Christmas dinner was still 5 weeks away, but I was beginning to wonder if my marriage would survive that long. The meeting at Emma's daycare on Tuesday morning felt like walking into an ambush. I arrived at 9:25 a.m. to find Linda already seated in Mrs. Henderson's office, her purse positioned perfectly on her lap, looking every inch the concerned grandmother. Michael sat beside her, checking his phone and looking uncomfortable in his hastily rearranged work clothes. Sarah, wonderful, Mrs. Henderson said as I took the remaining chair. I'm so glad we could all sit down together to discuss Emma's recent challenges. My recording app was already running, hidden in my jacket pocket. After Linda's performance last week, I'd started recording every interaction that felt remotely suspicious. I'm sorry, but I need to clarify something first, I said, keeping my voice steady. When I picked up Emma yesterday, Miss Kelly mentioned no behavioral problems. She said Emma had a great day and painted a beautiful butterfly during art time. Mrs. Henderson glanced at Linda, then back at me. Well, children often behave differently on different days. The incidents Mrs. Walsh described happened over the past few weeks. What specific incidents? I pressed. Emma has never bitten another child. I would have been notified immediately. The biting incident was minor, Linda interjected smoothly. Another child took Emma's toy during circle time, and Emma reacted impulsively. It's very common at this age, but it does indicate some emotional regulation issues we should address. Mrs. Henderson nodded along as if this made perfect sense, but I caught something in her expression, a flicker of uncertainty that told me she wasn't entirely comfortable with this conversation. Can you tell me the date this happened? I asked. And which child was involved? I'd like to apologize to the parents. Oh, that's not necessary, Linda said quickly. The other family understands completely. They have older children, so they know how these things go. Michael shifted in his chair. The important thing is making sure Emma gets the support she needs. Mom found some excellent early intervention programs that could really help with her language development. Michael, Emma's language development is completely normal. She said, Daddy, I want pancakes please yesterday morning. That's a 5-word sentence with proper grammar. But she doesn't speak clearly, Linda countered. Yesterday when I called, you put her on the phone, and I could barely understand what she was saying. It sounded like gibberish. This was a flat-out lie. Linda hadn't called yesterday, and Emma hadn't spoken to anyone on the phone. But she delivered it with such conviction that Michael was nodding along, his brow furrowed with concern. Mrs. Henderson consulted a file on her desk. I do have some notes here about Emma's communication patterns. Miss Kelly mentioned that Emma tends to use gestures instead of words when she's frustrated. All toddlers do that, I said, feeling the trap closing around me. It's developmentally appropriate. Of course, but combined with the other factors, the clinginess, the difficulty with transitions, it suggests Emma might benefit from additional support. Linda's voice was warm, reasonable, concerned. I've researched several pediatric developmental specialists who could do a comprehensive evaluation. Dr. Martinez already evaluated Emma at her 2-year appointment, I said. She passed every milestone. Dr. Martinez spent 15 minutes with Emma, Linda replied. A proper developmental assessment takes hours. They observe play patterns, social interaction, cognitive responses. It's much more thorough than a basic pediatric checkup. Michael was taking notes on his phone now, completely drawn into his mother's narrative. What kind of timeline are we looking at for an evaluation? Dr. Sarah Chen, she's actually Rebecca's cousin, small world, has an opening next Friday afternoon. She specializes in early childhood development and comes highly recommended. Rebecca's cousin. Of course. Linda wasn't just undermining my parenting, she was weaving Rebecca's entire family into our lives, creating connection points that would give her more opportunities to compare my inadequacies to Rebecca's perfections. I don't think Emma needs evaluation by a developmental specialist, I said firmly. The room fell silent. Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable, Linda's smile tightened almost imperceptibly, and Michael's expression shifted from concern to something that looked like disappointment. Sarah, Michael said quietly, if there's even a chance that Emma could benefit from some extra help, shouldn't we explore that? What's the harm in getting a professional opinion? The harm, I wanted to scream, is that your mother is systematically dismantling our family with lies and manipulation, and you're helping her do it. Instead, I said, fine. But I want Miss Kelly in this meeting. I want to hear directly from Emma's primary caregiver about these alleged behavioral problems. Mrs. Henderson glanced at the clock. Miss Kelly is with the children right now, but I could ask her to join us for a few minutes. That's not necessary, Linda said quickly. Miss Kelly already provided her input for the notes. We don't need to pull her away from the children. I'd prefer to hear from her directly. Linda's mask slipped for just a second, a flash of irritation that anyone paying attention would have caught. But Michael was still focused on his phone, probably researching Dr. Sarah Chen's credentials. Of course, Mrs. Henderson said. Let me see if she can step away briefly. While we waited, Linda filled the silence with a steady stream of concern about Emma's regression and stories about other children who'd benefited enormously from early intervention. Michael absorbed every word like gospel truth. Miss Kelly appeared 5 minutes later, looking puzzled about being summoned to a meeting she clearly knew nothing about. Hi, Emma's parents. Is everything okay? Emma's having a wonderful morning, she's been helping me set up the sensory bins. I felt a surge of vindication. Miss Kelly, Mrs. Henderson mentioned some recent behavioral incidents involving Emma. Biting, difficulty with transitions, extended meltdowns during art time? Miss Kelly's confused expression told me everything I needed to know. I'm sorry, but I think there might be some confusion. Emma hasn't had any behavioral issues. She's one of our most easygoing children. Just yesterday, she helped comfort another little boy who was having trouble at drop-off. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Linda's face remained perfectly composed, but I saw her hands tighten on her purse handle. Perhaps the incidents were reported by other staff members? Mrs. Henderson suggested weakly. I'm Emma's primary caregiver, and I document any concerns in her daily reports, Miss Kelly said. There haven't been any incidents to report. Michael looked up from his phone, finally sensing the tension in the room. So there haven't been any problems with Emma's behavior? None at all. Emma is a delightful child who plays well with others, follows instructions beautifully, and has wonderful language skills for her age. Just this morning she told me a whole story about her stuffed elephant having a tea party. I felt like crying with relief. But when I looked at Linda, her expression wasn't embarrassed or apologetic. Instead, she looked thoughtful, as if she was already calculating her next move. Well, she said with a gentle laugh, isn't that wonderful? Perhaps the concerns were overblown. But since we're all here, maybe Dr. Chen could still take a look at Emma. Prevention is always better than treatment, don't you think? Even in defeat, Linda was pivoting, turning the exposed lie into evidence of her thorough concern for Emma's well-being. And incredibly, Michael was nodding along. It couldn't hurt, he agreed. Just to be absolutely sure. As we left the daycare 20 minutes later, I realized that Linda had won again. She'd been caught in an outright lie about Emma's behavior, but somehow the meeting had ended with Michael scheduling an appointment with Rebecca's cousin for a developmental evaluation that our perfectly healthy daughter didn't need. The recording in my pocket had captured every word of Linda's manipulation, but I was beginning to understand that evidence might not be enough to save my marriage. Linda was playing a game with rules I was only beginning to understand, and she was very, very good at it. That evening, I sat in my car in our driveway for 20 minutes after getting home from school, staring at my phone. Dr. Sarah Chen's office had called twice while I was teaching, leaving voicemails about Emma's upcoming evaluation and requesting that I fill out extensive intake paperwork about my daughter's developmental concerns. Michael had scheduled the appointment without consulting me. The evaluation was set for Friday at 2 p.m., which meant I'd have to leave work early and pull Emma out of daycare for an assessment she didn't need, conducted by someone who was probably already primed to find problems that didn't exist. When I finally went inside, I found Michael in the kitchen helping Emma stack plastic cups into towers. She was giggling and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, with perfect clarity, exactly the kind of normal language development that proved Linda wrong about everything. How was your day? Michael asked, kissing my cheek while Emma proudly showed me her cup tower. Dr. Chen's office called. They want me to fill out paperwork describing Emma's behavioral issues and developmental delays. I kept my voice neutral, but Michael caught the edge underneath. Sarah, we've been through this. It's just a precautionary evaluation. Based on incidents that never happened. Miss Kelly made that very clear today. Michael's expression tightened. Miss Kelly might not see everything that happens. Sometimes problems are more obvious to family members who spend extended time with a child. You mean your mother? I mean people who have experience recognizing developmental patterns. Michael lifted Emma to the counter so she could help him prepare her afternoon snack. Mom raised 3 kids successfully. She knows what to look for. I watched my husband cut apple slices for our daughter while defending his mother's fabricated concerns, and something inside me finally snapped. Call Dr. Martinez, I said. Right now. Ask her directly about Emma's development at the 2-year checkup. Sarah. Call her, Michael. If you trust your mother's judgment over mine, at least get a second medical opinion before we subject Emma to unnecessary testing. Michael hesitated, clearly torn between avoiding conflict and addressing my challenge. Emma solved the dilemma by knocking over her cup tower and clapping enthusiastically, demanding more. More towers. Fine, Michael said, pulling out his phone. But if Dr. Martinez has any concerns at all, we're keeping the appointment with Dr. Chen. He dialed the pediatrician's office while I helped Emma rebuild her tower. I could hear the receptionist's voice faintly, then hold music, then Dr. Martinez herself coming on the line. Dr. Martinez? This is Michael Walsh, Emma's father. I'm sorry to bother you, but we have some questions about Emma's development. Yes, she's here with me now. No emergencies, just some concerns that have come up. I listened to Michael explain the situation, carefully omitting Linda's role in raising the concerns. To his credit, he presented the facts objectively, reports of behavioral issues at daycare that had been contradicted by the primary caregiver, questions about language development compared to other children Emma's age. Yes, really? That high? Okay, no, I didn't realize, yes, that's very reassuring. Michael's expression gradually shifted from defensive to surprise to something that looked like embarrassment. Thank you, Dr. Martinez. That's exactly what we needed to hear. Yes, if any real concerns develop, we'll absolutely bring her in. Thanks again. He hung up and stood quietly for a moment, watching Emma successfully stack 6 cups into a perfect tower while narrating her actions. Big cup bottom, little cup top, very tall tower for daddy. What did she say? I asked, though his expression had already given me the answer. Emma's language development is in the 85th percentile for her age group. Her social skills, motor development, and cognitive development are all ahead of schedule. Michael ran his hand through his hair. Dr. Martinez said she's one of the most advanced 2-year-olds in the practice. The kitchen fell silent except for Emma's cheerful babbling as she started building a second tower. Michael stared at his phone, clearly processing the disconnect between his mother's concerns and medical reality. I don't understand, he said finally. Mom was so convinced there were problems. She had specific examples, detailed observations. This was the moment. I could tell him the truth about his mother's campaign of manipulation, play the recordings, force him to confront Linda's lies. But looking at his confused, hurt expression, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Michael wasn't stupid. He wasn't blind or gullible. On some level, he had to know his mother was lying about Emma's development. Which meant he was choosing to believe her anyway. The question was, why? I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling while Michael slept peacefully beside me. Emma was in the 85th percentile. Advanced for her age. Dr. Martinez had been effusive about her development, even mentioning how impressed she'd been at the last checkup with Emma's vocabulary and social skills. Yet Michael had still agreed to keep the appointment with Dr. Chen. Just to be thorough, he'd said when I asked him about it over dinner. Dr. Martinez is great, but she's a general pediatrician. Dr. Chen specializes in early childhood development. Rebecca's cousin. The cousin who would undoubtedly find subtle issues that required ongoing monitoring, creating more opportunities for Linda to insert herself into our parenting decisions. More chances for Rebecca to naturally come up in conversation as we discussed Emma's treatment plan with her cousin. At 2:17 a.m., Michael's phone buzzed on his nightstand. I watched him reach for it automatically, squinting at the screen in the darkness. Everything okay? I whispered. Just Mom. She couldn't sleep. He was already typing a response. Worried about Emma after today's meeting. Worried about Emma, or worried that her lies had been exposed? I watched the blue glow of Michael's phone illuminate his face as he exchanged messages with Linda in the middle of the night. The conversation went on for nearly 10 minutes, unusually long for a quick check-in. What's she saying? I asked. She feels bad about the confusion at the daycare. Thinks maybe she misunderstood what Mrs. Henderson told her on the phone. Michael set his phone down and turned toward me. But she still thinks the evaluation could be valuable. Sometimes developmental issues don't show up until children are in more structured environments. Even caught in an outright lie, Linda was spinning the narrative to maintain her credibility. And Michael was helping her do it. What did you tell her? That we're keeping the appointment on Friday. That it's better to be safe than sorry. Michael's voice carried a note of defensiveness. Sarah, I know you think Mom is overreacting, but what if she's picking up on something we're missing? What if there are subtle signs that? There are no signs, Michael. Dr. Martinez confirmed that. Miss Kelly confirmed that. Emma is thriving. Then Dr. Chen will confirm that too, and we can all stop worrying. But I knew it wouldn't end there. Dr. Chen would find something, maybe not a delay, but a risk factor or an area to monitor. Something that would justify regular follow-up appointments and ongoing concern. Something that would keep Linda's manipulation campaign alive. Michael reached over and touched my hand. I love how protective you are of Emma. It's one of the things I admire most about you as a mother. But sometimes protection means being open to help when it's offered. His words were meant to be comforting, but they felt like a knife twisting in my chest. He genuinely believed he was being reasonable, balancing competing concerns, making thoughtful parental decisions. He couldn't see that every choice he was making was playing directly into his mother's hands. Rebecca texted me today, I said into the darkness. Michael's hand stiffened slightly on mine. About what? Still wanting to get coffee. She's persistent. Rebecca was always focused when she wanted something. There was warmth in his voice, a fondness that made my stomach clench. Did you respond? I told her maybe after Emma's evaluation on Friday. Mentioned we were dealing with some family health concerns. Michael was quiet for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, you didn't need to tell her about the evaluation. That's private family business. She asked if everything was okay. I was just being polite. I paused. Unless you think there's a reason to keep it private from Rebecca specifically? Of course not. Rebecca and I have history. I don't want her thinking we can't handle our own family issues. There it was. Michael cared what Rebecca thought about our marriage, our parenting, our ability to manage our lives. He wanted to appear competent and in control to the woman Linda kept praising as the perfect partner he should have chosen. She's family friends with Dr. Chen, I said carefully. She might hear about the evaluation anyway. Right. Dr. Chen is her cousin. Michael's voice was getting drowsy. Small world. Small world, or carefully orchestrated connections designed to entangle Rebecca deeper into our lives? At 6:43 a.m., my phone rang. Linda's name flashed on the screen, and I almost declined the call before remembering that I needed more evidence of her true nature. I hit record on my app and answered. Linda? Is everything okay? Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry to call this early, but I couldn't sleep all night thinking about yesterday's meeting. Her voice was thick with manufactured remorse. I feel terrible about the misunderstanding with Emma's daycare records. What misunderstanding? Well, when I called Mrs. Henderson last week, I think I may have misinterpreted what she told me about Emma's adjustment. You know how these things can get garbled over the phone. Linda was rewriting history in real time, turning her deliberate lies into innocent miscommunication. I'm just so grateful that Emma is doing as well as you say she is, Linda continued. Michael told me about Dr. Martinez's wonderful report. Such a relief. Yes, Emma is developing beautifully. Of course she is. She has such a devoted mother. The words dripped with false warmth. I hope you don't think I was overstepping. I just worry because I love that little girl so much. Everything about the call was calculated, the early timing to catch me off guard, the fake apology that wasn't really an apology, the positioning of herself as a loving grandmother whose only crime was caring too much. We appreciate your concern, I said carefully. I know Michael is still planning to keep Friday's appointment, just to be absolutely certain everything is on track. Dr. Chen is supposed to be wonderful, very thorough, very experienced with complex developmental patterns. Complex developmental patterns. Linda was already priming me to expect Dr. Chen to find something subtle, something that a regular pediatrician might miss but that a specialist would catch. Friday should be interesting, I said. Oh, I'm sure Dr. Chen will have lots of valuable insights. Rebecca speaks so highly of her cousin's expertise. Linda's tone was casual, but the mention of Rebecca felt deliberate. Actually, Rebecca offered to join us for the appointment if you'd like. As moral support. She's been through evaluations with her nephew. My blood went cold. Rebecca wanted to attend Emma's medical appointment. She wanted to be present for private family decisions, to position herself as a helpful friend while gathering information about our parenting struggles. That won't be necessary, I said firmly. Of course not. I just thought, well, Rebecca understands how stressful these appointments can be. But you're absolutely right, this is family business. Linda had made the suggestion knowing I'd refuse it, but now she'd planted the idea that Rebecca was available, concerned, and experienced with exactly the kind of problems Linda was manufacturing for Emma. I should let you go, Linda said. I just wanted to clear the air about yesterday. Michael means everything to me, and by extension, you and Emma mean everything to me too. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen holding my phone, staring at the new recording file. 23 minutes of Linda's masterful manipulation, all captured in crystal clarity. Christmas dinner was 4 weeks away. By then, Linda would have established Emma as a child with complex developmental patterns requiring ongoing monitoring by Rebecca's cousin. She would have positioned herself as the experienced grandmother whose vigilance had caught problems everyone else missed. And she would have woven Rebecca so thoroughly into our family narrative that her presence would feel natural, helpful, inevitable. I uploaded the recording to my secure cloud storage and added it to the growing collection of evidence. 23 more minutes of proof that would either save my marriage or destroy it completely. Friday afternoon arrived with the weight of inevitability. I sat in Dr. Chen's waiting room at 1:47 p.m., watching Emma play contentedly with a wooden puzzle while Michael checked work emails on his phone. The office was exactly what I'd expected, expensive, immaculate, filled with developmental assessment tools that looked more like instruments of judgment than toys. The Walsh family? A woman in her mid-30s appeared, clipboard in hand, smile professionally warm. Dr. Sarah Chen looked remarkably like Rebecca, same bone structure, same confident posture, same way of commanding attention without effort. Thank you so much for fitting us in, Michael said, standing to shake her hand. Rebecca speaks so highly of your work. Rebecca is wonderful. She mentioned your family specifically, said you have concerns about Emma's development? Dr. Chen's eyes moved to Emma, who was now attempting to fit a star-shaped piece into a round hole with intense concentration. She's beautiful. How old? 26 months, I said, lifting Emma to my hip. She immediately buried her face against my shoulder, suddenly shy. That's normal stranger anxiety, Dr. Chen noted, making a mark on her clipboard. Some children Emma's age show increased wariness around new people, especially in unfamiliar environments. The way she said it made stranger anxiety sound like a symptom rather than healthy development. My recording app was running in my purse. I'd started documenting everything now. Dr. Chen's evaluation room contained more testing materials than I'd seen outside a research facility. She guided Emma through a series of activities while asking us detailed questions about her behavior, sleep patterns, eating habits, and social interactions. Can Emma identify basic colors? Dr. Chen asked, holding up cards. Red. Emma said immediately, pointing. Blue. Yellow. Green. Good. How about shapes? Emma correctly identified circles, squares, triangles, and stars without hesitation. She counted to 10, sang the alphabet song, and demonstrated understanding of prepositions by following complex instructions. Put the bear under the box, then give the ball to daddy. Every task Emma completed perfectly. Dr. Chen noted something on her forms. When Emma successfully completed a puzzle designed for 3-year-olds, Dr. Chen wrote extensively. Is there a problem? Michael asked after 40 minutes of flawless performance. Not problems, exactly. But I'm noticing some interesting patterns. Dr. Chen set down her pen and studied Emma, who was now building an elaborate tower with blocks while humming to herself. Emma's cognitive abilities are quite advanced. She's performing at a 3-year-old level in most areas. I felt a surge of pride, but Dr. Chen's expression remained serious. However, advanced cognitive development can sometimes mask underlying processing issues. Gifted children often develop coping mechanisms that hide subtle delays in other areas. She pulled out a thick folder. I'd like to schedule Emma for our comprehensive assessment program, 6 sessions over 3 weeks, each focusing on different developmental domains. My heart sank. What kind of processing issues? Well, Emma showed some repetitive behaviors during block play, organizing by color before building, which could indicate rigidity in thinking patterns. And while her vocabulary is extensive, I noticed she doesn't initiate conversations with me directly. She speaks to you and Michael, but treats me as an observer rather than a communication partner. Everything Dr. Chen described sounded like normal toddler behavior to me, but she delivered each observation with clinical authority that made them sound concerning. Rebecca mentioned you might have some insight into Emma's social development, Dr. Chen continued, glancing at Michael. She's observed Emma at family gatherings and noticed some patterns that align with what I'm seeing today. Rebecca had been observing Emma at family gatherings. Rebecca had been discussing my daughter's development with a medical professional. Rebecca was now part of Emma's official healthcare narrative. The trap Linda had been building for months was finally springing shut. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Rebecca hasn't been to any family gatherings where Emma was present. We haven't seen her in over 3 years. Dr. Chen paused, pen hovering over her notes. That's interesting. She specifically mentioned observing Emma's play patterns during a recent Sunday dinner at your in-law's house. Michael shifted uncomfortably beside me. Rebecca hasn't been to any Sunday dinners. Perhaps I misunderstood, Dr. Chen said smoothly, but I caught the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Family connections can get complicated. Let me focus on what I observed today. But the damage was done. Rebecca had been feeding information to Dr. Chen about observations she'd never made, priming the evaluation before we'd even arrived. This wasn't a medical assessment, it was a performance designed to reach predetermined conclusions. You know what? We're done here, I said, standing and lifting Emma from the playmat. Thank you for your time, but we won't be scheduling additional sessions. Mrs. Walsh, I understand this can be overwhelming, but early intervention is crucial for children with Emma's profile. Emma doesn't have a profile. She's a healthy, happy 2-year-old who just demonstrated advanced development in every area you tested. I was already gathering our jackets, Emma clinging to my neck with growing confusion. Michael stood more slowly. Sarah, maybe we should listen to what Dr. Chen recommends. No. The word came out sharper than I intended, making Emma flinch. I softened my voice immediately. We're leaving. Dr. Chen tried one more approach. I completely understand your protective instincts, but sometimes parents are too close to a situation to see patterns clearly. Rebecca mentioned that Emma's grandmother has expressed some concerns. Emma's grandmother needs to mind her own business. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. And so does Rebecca. The ride home was silent except for Emma's cheerful babbling from her car seat. Michael gripped the steering wheel, his jaw tight with controlled anger. I stared out the passenger window, my phone burning in my purse with 2 hours of recorded evidence that I still wasn't ready to use. That was embarrassing, Michael said finally as we pulled into our driveway. What was embarrassing was being ambushed by an evaluation based on lies and observations from someone who's never spent time with our daughter. Dr. Chen is a respected professional. She's not part of some conspiracy against you. Isn't she? Rebecca fed her false information about Emma before we ever walked into that office. How is that ethical medical practice? Michael turned off the engine but made no move to get out. Maybe Rebecca mentioned seeing Emma somewhere and Dr. Chen misremembered the details. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Michael. This was orchestrated. I turned to face him fully. Your mother lies about Emma's behavior at daycare, gets caught in the lie, then somehow we end up at an appointment with Rebecca's cousin who claims to have observations from Rebecca that are physically impossible. Do you see the pattern? I see you becoming paranoid about every interaction involving my family. The word paranoid hit like a slap. It was exactly what Linda wanted, to make me appear unstable, overreactive, unable to handle reasonable parenting decisions. Call Rebecca, I said. Right now. Ask her when she observed Emma at your parents' house. Michael's hesitation told me everything. He knew Rebecca hadn't been there. He knew Dr. Chen's information was false. But admitting that would mean acknowledging his mother's manipulation, and he wasn't ready to do that. Emma started fussing in her car seat, tired from a long afternoon and sensing the tension between her parents. We should go inside, Michael said instead of making the call. As I unbuckled Emma and carried her toward our front door, I made a decision. Christmas dinner was 3 weeks away, but I couldn't wait that long. Linda's campaign was escalating too quickly, pulling in medical professionals and creating official documentation of problems that didn't exist. It was time to play the recordings. That evening, after Emma was asleep, I found Michael in the living room scrolling through his phone. The same blue glow that had illuminated our bedroom at 2:17 a.m. when Linda texted him about being worried. We need to talk, I said, sitting across from him with my laptop. Sarah, if this is about Dr. Chen again. It's about your mother. I opened the laptop and pulled up the first recording file. I've been documenting our conversations for the past 3 weeks. I think you need to hear what Linda actually says when you're not around. Michael's expression shifted from irritation to something approaching alarm. You've been recording my mother? I've been recording someone who's been systematically lying about our daughter and trying to destroy our marriage. My finger hovered over the play button. November 15th, 7:23 a.m. The morning after your birthday dinner. I hit play. Linda's voice filled the room, crystal clear and unmistakably cruel. You're not good enough for him, Sarah. You never were. And deep down, you know it. Michael went very still. The recording continued. Linda's comments about my appearance, my teaching career, my parenting. Her fabricated claims about conversations with Michael. Her threats about Emma's custody. Her lies about Rebecca asking about me. 21 minutes and 17 seconds of pure manipulation, played back in Linda's own voice. When it ended, Michael was staring at the laptop screen like it had personally betrayed him. There are more, I said quietly, pulling up additional files. Tuesday's meeting at the daycare. This morning's phone call. Every conversation where she thought she was safe to tell the truth. Jesus Christ, Michael whispered. Then louder, Jesus fucking Christ, Sarah. How long has she been? How long has this been going on? 2 years. Since Emma was born. It got worse after we moved closer to your parents, and it's been escalating since Rebecca came back to town. I played the recording from Friday morning, where Linda mentioned Rebecca wanting to attend Emma's medical appointment. Then Tuesday's call where Linda tried to rewrite her exposed lies as misunderstandings. Michael listened to it all with growing horror, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and what looked like grief. She told you I said married life wasn't what I expected, he said when the recording's finished. That I called you another child to take care of. Did you say those things? Never. Sarah, I have never said anything like that. Not to her, not to anyone. He ran both hands through his hair. The stuff about Rebecca, I ran into her exactly once at the grocery store. With Mom. Rebecca said hi, asked how you were, and that was it. 30 seconds, maybe. Your mother made it sound like some romantic reunion. It was nothing. Less than nothing. I didn't even mention it because there was nothing to mention. Michael stood up and began pacing. And the stuff about Emma's development, about me questioning your parenting, none of that is real. Emma is perfect. You're an amazing mother. I thought Mom was just being overly concerned. She fabricated incidents at daycare, Michael. She convinced you to schedule a medical evaluation based on complete lies. I know. I fucking know. He stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, like he was seeing his entire family through new eyes. Dr. Chin mentioned observations from Rebecca that were impossible. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe. That your mother would lie about our daughter to break up our marriage? Michael sat down heavily on the couch. Why would she do this? What does she gain from destroying our family? I had theories, Linda's need to control Michael, her belief that he'd married beneath himself, her conviction that Rebecca was a better choice. But the why mattered less than what happened next. What are you going to do? I asked. Michael was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. When he finally looked up, his expression was resolute. Christmas dinner is in 3 weeks. My whole family will be there, Mom, Dad, my brothers, Uncle Jim, Aunt Carol. 15 people who think Linda walks on water. He met my eyes. I want you to play these recordings. All of them. I want everyone to hear exactly who my mother really is. Michael, that will destroy your family. No, he said firmly. She already did that. I'm just going to make sure everyone knows it. Christmas dinner, 2:30 p.m. Linda's dining room was perfect as always, gleaming china, fresh flowers, the smell of honey ham and homemade rolls filling the house. Emma sat in her high chair between Michael and me, happily eating mashed sweet potatoes and charming her uncles with perfect 2-year-old pronunciation. Linda presided over the table like a benevolent queen, accepting compliments on the meal, asking thoughtful questions about everyone's lives, being the picture-perfect grandmother as she cut Emma's ham into tiny pieces. At 3:15 p.m., Michael stood up and tapped his wine glass. Before we move to dessert, Sarah and I have something we'd like to share with everyone. I pulled out my laptop, my hands surprisingly steady. Linda's smile faltered slightly as she realized something unexpected was happening. Over the past few weeks, some concerning things have come to light about family communication patterns, Michael continued. We think it's important for everyone to hear these conversations directly. I hit play on the first recording. Linda's voice filled the dining room. You're not good enough for him, Sarah. You never were. The reaction was immediate. Uncle Jim's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Aunt Carol gasped audibly. Michael's father looked at Linda with complete bewilderment. We played all of it. Every cruel comment, every manipulation, every lie. 21 minutes that felt like hours, with Linda's true voice echoing off her perfect walls while her perfect family listened in horrified silence. When it ended, Linda was staring at her plate, her face pale but her spine still straight. Well, she said finally, her voice steady. I suppose everyone makes mistakes when they're under stress. Even then, even caught red-handed with her own voice as evidence, she couldn't admit what she'd done. Michael's father spoke first. Linda, what the hell is wrong with you? The conversation that followed lasted 2 hours. Linda tried denial, then justification, then victim blaming. She accused me of manipulating the recordings, of taking things out of context, of forcing her into saying things she didn't mean. No one bought it. By 6 p.m., it was clear that Linda's reign as the beloved family matriarch was over. Michael's brothers were furious. Uncle Jim called her behavior sociopathic. Aunt Carol, who had never liked me much, actually apologized for enabling Linda's treatment of me. As we packed up Emma's things to leave, Michael's father pulled me aside. Sarah, I am deeply sorry. I had no idea Linda was. I should have seen it. Should have protected you better. Linda watched us leave from her front window, still sitting at her ruined Christmas table. She never apologized. Never acknowledged the damage she'd caused. But her power over Michael was finally broken. 3 months later, we moved 4 hours away. Michael transferred to his company's regional office. I found a teaching position at an excellent elementary school, and Emma thrived in a daycare where no one questioned her perfect development. Linda sees Emma twice a year now, always with Michael present. She's perfectly civil, even warm, but the manipulation is over. She knows we have recordings. She knows her family heard them. She knows that one wrong move will result in complete exile from Emma's life. Rebecca and I never did have that coffee. Sometimes people ask what happened when I recorded my mother-in-law without her knowing. The answer is simple. I saved my marriage by letting Linda's own words reveal who she really was. The truth, as it turns out, was the most powerful weapon I could have asked for.